Imagine living in a place with no police officers, where there's no one to stop people from doing whatever they want. That's how the Canadian West felt in the 1800s, a wide-open land without much law. But in 1873, Canada created the Northwest Mounted Police, or NWMP, to change that. In this video, we'll explore why the NWMP was created, how they kept order in the West, and the impact they had on settlers, First Nations, and Métis communities. So let's dive in and see how this police force shaped Canada. Brought to you by Super Simple Sheets. From coast to coast, worksheets that work. Discover the full range of what we offer at supersimplesheets.com. Section 1. Why Canada needed the NWMP. In the 1800s, Canada's West was a land full of opportunity but also full of challenges. It was mostly open land, becoming home to many new settlers, traders, and Indigenous communities, yet there was no official law enforcement. The government was particularly worried about American whiskey traders. These traders were coming from the United States and selling alcohol to Indigenous communities. The whiskey trade created serious problems, as it often led to violence, taking advantage of people and creating tension. One tragic event, the Cypress Hills Massacre, occurred in Saskatchewan when American traders attacked an Indigenous camp, killing many people. This event made Canada realize they needed a police force to protect people and maintain peace. In 1873, Prime Minister Sir John A. Macdonald founded the Northwest Mounted Police, or NWMP, with a mission to enforce Canadian law and prevent violence in the West. This force was created to protect people from harm and ensure that Canadian law was respected, creating a safer environment for everyone. Section 2. The role of the NWMP in keeping order. The NWMP had a huge task ahead of them. In 1874, nearly 300 officers made their way across the prairies in what's known as the March West. They traveled across thousands of kilometers of tough terrain and harsh weather, but they were determined to bring Canadian law to the West. Their main job was to enforce laws, stop the illegal whiskey trade, and keep order. They established posts across the prairies, including places like Fort Macleod and Fort Walsh. From these posts, they cracked down on the whiskey trade, settled disputes, and kept the peace. They weren't just about catching criminals, they also helped settle disagreements between settlers and Indigenous groups, acting as mediators to keep peace. The NWMP quickly became known for their bright red uniforms, which earned them the nickname Redcoats. Their red uniforms became a symbol of Canadian authority in the West. The sight of the Redcoats helped create a sense of order, building trust among settlers and Indigenous groups alike. Section 3. Impact on settlers, Indigenous, and Métis communities. The NWMP had a major impact on many different communities in the West. For settlers, the NWMP's presence brought a sense of security. Knowing that the NWMP were there to keep order encouraged more settlers to move west, which led to the growth of towns and farms. For Indigenous and Métis communities, the NWMP's arrival was more complex. At times, the NWMP protected Indigenous communities from unfair treatment by settlers and traders. But they also enforced laws that conflicted with Indigenous customs and rights. For example, the NWMP made sure that Indigenous groups followed the terms of treaties signed with the government, which often limited traditional Indigenous practices. The NWMP also played a role in the Northwest Resistance of 1885, a conflict between the Métis, led by Louis Riel, and the Canadian government. The NWMP fought against the Métis in the conflict, which ended with Riel's capture and execution. This was a difficult time for Métis and Indigenous communities, as they lost more control over their lands and ways of life. Despite these challenges, the NWMP's efforts to bring peace and order to the West helped shape Canada's identity. Over time, the NWMP became known as a symbol of Canadian values, keeping peace, respecting law, and protecting the land. This legacy eventually transformed into the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or RCMP, which remains one of Canada's most recognized symbols today. Conclusion. The Northwest Mounted Police were more than just law enforcers. They were a symbol of Canada's commitment to peace and order in the West. By maintaining peace, protecting settlers, and interacting with Indigenous and Métis communities, Sometimes positively, sometimes with controversy, the NWMP played a huge role in shaping Canada's history. Thanks for watching. Simplify your teaching journey with super simple sheets. Across Canada, we're known for our ready-to-use, curriculum-aligned worksheets. Dive into our educational solutions at supersimplesheets.com. Super Simple Sheets. From coast to coast, worksheets that work.